श्रोताओं, आज डॉक्टर अशोक रानडे जी का तीसरा लेक्चर हम प्रस्तुत कर रहे हैं। डॉक्टर साहब यहाँ उपस्थित हैं। आज का विषय है संगीत और धर्म।
Happy to be with you this evening for concluding my series of discussions with you. After the first two presentations, people said that it seems that you are speaking without any obscurity and people are able to understand you. So I took this objection to my heart and I have chosen a theme which is likely to cause a lot of heart burning, heart searching and very deep thinking for all of us. Usually it is fashionable to take up a theme which is much in demand. Now religion is in demand these days. Music also seems to be in great demand. So this is one reason which is adequate to take up this theme. But second reason is that lot of us who go abroad and lot of us who don't go abroad but want to go abroad always talk of Indian music as highly devotional, highly religious, sacred, divine, spiritual. And these are the words which have been bandied about almost as catchwords. And I know from experience that 90% of the musicians on 80% of occasions do not believe that all the time music can be a need to be spiritual. And this has been a problem with me. I am trying to think about the relationship. And that's why I said let me exchange a few ideas with you. Not trying to say that this is my conclusion or this can be anybody's conclusion, but surely there are reasons to think about it again and again, and this seems to be an opportune moment. People are in fact misusing the relationship of religion and music. I believe that there are uses, there are misuses and abuses. Abuses are the most objectionable because they are deliberate perversions of facts and tendencies. Misuses are unfortunate because they are due to ignorance, they are due to lack of information. Uses are natural, and I feel that music and religion relationship is a natural phenomenon. And that's why to that extent I feel that all musics and all religions have an inherent relationship. So on this count, I don't feel like claiming a special status for Indian music. But not trying to generalize, not trying to pad up my talk with statistics and anthropological surveys, etc., I will pose certain problems. I do feel that in India, music and religion relationship is a deep one, as also a durable one. 8 of the 10 world religions have long traditions in India. All of them are well distributed in the country. It is also very obvious that all these religions have come to stay for centuries in India, and similarly about music. To that extent, coexistence of music and religion is an accepted fact in India. Nobody can controvert that fact. It also appears that musicians too have a belief that they have a special relationship with religion. For example, it's very clear that a number of compositions which we sing are in praise of deities, are in praise of saints. Many of the compositions are result of the saint composers being actively propagating music and God through each other. It also appears very clear that even a cursory glance at philosophical and religious beliefs in India seem to draw a close relationship between Parabrahma and Nada Brahma. That's a very aptly formed pair of words which people refer to again and again. I have a quarrel here because Nada Brahma, as the musicians understand, does not figure in that way in philosophy. In short, I would say that if we try to analyze the concept of sound in Indian philosophy and music, it begins with Shabda. Shabda has been defined as experience of the sense of hearing and property of the ether. This is the first principle that we have, Shabda. Then we have Nada, which is a part of Shabda, which is a subclass of Shabda. Now, Nada is of two varieties, Ahata Nada, Anahata Nada. Anahata Nada is meant for and practiced by and perceived by yogins. I am sure musicians, lot of them are not yogins. Our interest is in Ahata Nada. Ahata Nada is that which is produced when something strikes from something else. That is Ahata. After that Ahata, we get another class which is known as Dhvani. Now Dhvani is defined as produced by Mridangadihi. That means produced by instruments. To refresh our memories, vocal cords are treated as one of the instruments. So that any sound which is produced by instruments is Dhvani. After Dhvani, we get Varna. Now Varna is bifurcated. In music it becomes Sthai, Arohi, Avrohi. In language it becomes vowels, etc. Further than that, we come to Swara, where we have musical notes coming into picture for the first time. Mind you, Aroha, Avroha, to start with, is not of Swara, it's only of sound. Because a continuous upgoing sound is perceived as Aroha, it need not be in musical notes. Even a siren is felt as Aroha or Avroha. It doesn't have one musical note or a series of musical notes. So that Aroha, Avroha are not confined to musical notes as they are identified. And that's why only when you come to Swaras, you are talking of musical notes at Saragama, Padhani, etc. And here of course you have Saghosha, Aghosha, and then all the consonants and everything else. So the problem that I was speaking of, that Nada Brahma, Parabrahma, when you think that they are related, they are at a stage where Nada has not become music. Nada is only a promise of music. It's a matrix of music, but it's not music. So when people start thinking of Nada Yoga, and they say, that's why I am a musician, that's why I am nearer to God, I think his thinking is too quick to be factual. So I have a quarrel there. So apart from musicians believe that Parabrahma, Nada Brahma are near, and as we are musicians, we are nearer to Parabrahma, poor chaps, they never think of what the Parabrahma would be feeling about it. Lesser than that, still more evidence is that lot of musicians, a number of musicians become saintly in their behavior, and number of saints take advantage of music to propagate their religious ideas. So here there is a relationship, but the relationship is of a very peculiar kind. I will come to that later. So what I am suggesting is that there are grounds to believe that music and religion are related in India, and these grounds are what I have stated. When one goes ahead, I ask myself a very basic question, and I will give you my answer, you may controvert that. I came to a decision after collecting evidence from various kinds of thought processes and disciplines that religiosity in India is a drive and musicality in India is a drive. It's not an instinct. The moment you say it's an instinct, it has to be applicable to all human beings, but I am not sure of that. I am saying that in India, religiosity is a drive. The moment you are born in an Indian society, you have a religious temperament. Similarly, you have a musical temperament. In India, it's very difficult to find a real monotone, that is, a person who is not able to distinguish between two notes. It's very difficult to find it in India. We are a highly musically literate nation for various reasons. One reason is, as I have said in the earlier lectures, that we have 5 categories of music. So, for this high degree of musical literacy, classical musicians need not take all the credit, because art musicians constitute only 3% of the total reality. I have said primitive music, devotional music, folk music, popular music and art music. These are the 5 categories. So we are a musically literate nation because there are so many categories. And all of them are active for more than 2000 years. So the point is, yes, I do believe we are a religious nation. And mind you, that does not mean that we are pious, we are ethical, we are moral. No. That doesn't mean that. Similarly, when I say that we are a musical nation, does not mean that whenever we sing or whenever we produce, it's a good music. No. These two things are totally different. Yes, but we are a religious nation and we are a musical nation. Then I pose 7 questions to myself and of course to you. The first is that how these religiosities and musicalities become manifest in India. Then I said, well, there are 7 statements to be made here. One is that in religion as well as music, you have Acharya, Vichara and Uchara. You have a behavior pattern, you have a thought process, and you have verbalization. All these 3 are found in music as well as religion. And this is how we come to notice that these things exist in India. Then it seems that there are all the times music changes taking place. And then religion and music relationship is also changing every time. Naturally, changes are possible only if it's a living organism. If a relationship changes, that means both the things are in existence. So there is an evidence that the moment you think of a new religion, you are compelled to think of new music. And the moment you fail in having a new music for that religion, it's very interesting that the religion falters. As you know, apart from the world religions like Jainism, Buddhism, Hindu, Islam, Zoroastrian, Christian, etc., we had in recent times Brahmo Samaj and Prarthana Samaj. My thesis is that these religions failed because they couldn't have their own music. They wanted to carve out a philosophy for themselves and also music to go with it, because they were aware that unless you have a music, your religion will fail to have a body. And they failed because they couldn't have their own music. Corroborative evidence is that whenever you have Vaishnavism, Shaivism, what happened? Any religion which became dominant succeeded in foisting its own music on the earlier religion. All over India you will find that wherever there was Shaivism, Vaishnavism came later on, and in spite of its non-violent protestations and non-violent beliefs, it in a way totally removed the earlier music. You will see that everywhere. Of course, this doesn't mean that, ideas are decimated. This doesn't mean that human beings are slaughtered. Not that kind of violence. But I am saying idea change, and idea change according to this relationship. So you have to be very careful when you say that, oh, we are devotional people, because somebody is going to ask you when, where, from what age, right from throughout your life. Was your father also equally musico-religious as you are? And these questions are very uncomfortable, and that's why we never raise them. But as there are few people, and as there are serious people, I am raising the questions. It also seems that every religion begins by having a philosophical framework which differs from the earlier or concurrent philosophical frameworks. Then it begins to have, as I said, Acharya, and then it begins to have Uchara. If it succeeds in formulating everything, that is all the three, according to its new tenets, the religion takes roots. If it doesn't, the religion doesn't take root. It becomes a kind of curiosity. You have to refer to it in books, but not in day-to-day behavioral patterns. It's interesting that both music and religion always claim that they are universal. They will say that these can transcend across boundaries of language, creed, etc., etc. They say that even if you don't understand the language, you will understand the music. Similarly, they also say that, well, even if you are from Hindu religion, you will be able to understand this kind of principle in another religion. So this universality is claimed by both religious people and musical people. Again, the question is it borne out by facts? Can we say that music is a universal language? Or are there dialects? And what you understand is such an abstract entity that you do not understand really that music. You are making an excuse of that music to move somewhere else. And I will elaborate on this point later. At present, I am laying ground for discussion which I said is bound to be controversial. Religious authorities in India have always fought shy of secular music. That is, music which is produced by non-religious forces, say for entertainment, recreation, games, etc. But once they are aware that this music is taking roots, religious authorities have never been slow in adopting the same music for their own purposes and converting that music into use. Mind you, this is also happening world over. It's nothing peculiar to India. If you study Christianity, you will find a similar thing. Very interesting evidence is there are religions like Islam and Buddhism which have taken stands against the use of music and in fact performing arts. And you see in history that through back door the arts enter. Not only that, in India we have specific and special manifestations of all religions who proscribed or prohibited music, but which are full of music in India. And they have been the main forces in shaping music and performing arts in India. Obviously, in India, due to various forces, these must be the two drives which have been driving us forward. So I might say that music is not good for the upliftment of soul, and then I might say, but even then, I would like to have some music. And then through back door allow it. Then of course you have to change definitions, you have to change music, you have to have a sacred sanction. You say, no, this has been, allowed by Lord Shankara. Poor Lord Shankara is the authority for everything that you want to do. Or you take Radha Krishna and allow everything. It's good of them that they don't complain. That is Radha Krishna or Shiva, they don't complain. Ganapati never complains. One of my pet interpretations is that Lord Ganesha has to have large ears, because Ganeshotsav is the occasion when you really force so many dissonant sounds in his ear. So he has to have a capacity. No other deity suffers so much from this kind of music. And of course deities differ in their capacity because they have differing roles to follow. They have to function differently. Point that I am making is that throughout history of India, irrespective of the religion you are studying or irrespective of the musical system you are following, irrespective of the region that you are studying or literary tradition you are following, you will find these two drives have been interacting on each other. And my question is why? Not because Indian music by itself is religious or spiritual. There must be something else for it. And what is that? That's the question that I am raising. Perhaps I should at this stage explain a bit more about what I mean by religiosity. I am not sure whether Oxford Dictionary will sanction this word, religiosity. But I am not really bothered about that, because English is our language, as you know. We have shaped it and we are shaping it. Language always belongs to the users, just as music belongs to the users, not to books. If we use it, it's bound to be so. The point is, religiosity means tendency to be religious. Similarly, musicality means tendency to be musical. Not success in being musical, but tendency. You are inclined that way, that's all. So religiosity means at least four things are present. First is rituality. Second is mythology. Third is an intellectual aspect, a tradition which is scholastic. And fourthly, institutionalization. It always tries to have institutes. If you think of it, even in a brief survey you would realize that why do you need rituals? Can you show me a religion which does not have a ritual? You can't. Can you show me a religion which lacks mythology? It has to have mythology. Can you show me a religion which does not have thought content, intellectual aspect? No. Can you show me a religion which is not based on institutionalization? You have disciples, you have gurus, you have ashrams, you have mutts, you have procedures, you have laws, regulations, everything codified. And as the days increase, you have more and more codification, more and more interpretation. As somebody said that there are only 10 commandments given by Moses and you have more than 35,000 laws to enforce them. Why? That means either you accept that you are not religious in that sense. You need codification, you need laws. You don't understand religion, you like it, that's all. But you don't understand it. Otherwise, there has to be an accepted gap between understanding and actually doing it. That's where the intellectual aspect comes in, that yes, it has an intellectual aspect and you feel satisfied that you have understood it, but you have not imbibed it. That's a totally different thing. There comes the last aspect which I wanted to discuss separately, and that is the emotional experience part. Every religion would say that we give you a different and unique and valuable emotional experience, that's why we are important. Now, I would like you to apply all this to music, and you will see all of them are present in equal measure in music. You have rituality, yes, and for this matter you don't have to understand rituality as something which is written down in Puranas. No. Rituality means you follow procedures and processes and acts and actions and formula which will help you to reach those levels of the mind which are otherwise inaccessible to you. That's why you think, and I will think of my guru so that my concert will be good. I will take deep breath, or I will do pranam to him, or I will do that, or I will have, just as Vinod Kamble would have a locket in his hand. He will, as soon as the century is hit, he will look up. He doesn't believe really that God lives there. But this is the ritualistic part of it. Now these kind of rituals exist in music. You are aware of it. Mythology. Yes. What do we mean by mythology? Mythology means really stories and beliefs about how to create things and how to destroy them. Both. Mythology can never be full of virtues. Never. Because mythology reflects life. Life can never be full of virtues. Dreams can be. So the point is, you have mythology. Gurus curse and you are not able to sing. It's a myth, but it's full of mythology. Everybody has that. In your own life you must have heard it. His boon, his ashirwad, and everything succeeds. Some unknown sadhu gives you something and your voice improves. You have a dream and then from then on everything changes. All these are mythologies, and all of them are extremely useful. All of them are current, in circulation, powerful, shape your musical careers and behavior, and that's why mythology exists. You have, of course, the intellectual aspect, quite true. And intellectual aspect does not really mean only grammar, only grammatical part, but the thinking part of it. Many times we say that, oh, his musical thought was great. The execution was poor, but thought was great. Now we are not referring to grammar alone, because the moment the performance is poor, your grammatical aspect is annihilated, but the idea remains, and we respect the idea. And that's why the thought structure, and there are great thoughts about music, how music should be taught, how music should be propagated, how music should be received, how you should codify it, how you should not codify it, great thoughts about it, and a great tradition about that. What is successful music, what is bad music, what is aesthetic music, great thoughts about that. So the point is that all this exists in music. You have, of course, institutionalization. I am not referring to Bharatiya, Vidya, Bhavan or Music Vidyapith, no. I am saying you have gurus, I am saying you have gharanas, I am saying you have ideologies, you have definite rules. You say, no, this is not done in my gharana, this cannot be done in my gharana. And you have a full chain of ideas to prove. You don't say that, do this because I tell you. You try to give him a reasoning. You say, this cannot be done because this. All this really means the intellectual aspect. And finally then, now I come to a very interesting point here. Interesting to me, of course, and I hope that it will be interesting to you. It seems that the emotional experience is worth the name because it cannot be verbalized, it cannot be split. We seem to believe, that is, the religious people as well as the musical people, they always say rang. Now I am giving you two terms. In religion it will be sakshatkar, grace, anugraha, whatever. In music it would be rang, dard, baat, rasa, whatever. Now these are terminological clusters. We are referring to a particular kind of emotional experience, and we try to build up theories to explain the experience, and finally we say, but beyond this I can't go. Basically all of us seem to believe that this emotional experience cannot be verbalized, whether it is in religion or in music. And the moment you appreciate the fact, then you realize that emotional experience in music cannot be really what we term as rasa theory, or what we term as sad music or glad music or joyful music. No, it's much beyond that. In fact, you will see that whether it is ranga or whether it is sakshatkara, it is beyond all descriptions. And that's why people want to have paradoxical descriptions. They will say this is it and this is not it. They have to have paradoxes, because the moment you say this is this, you are confining it. And you are saying emotional experience of music or religion cannot be confined. Once you say that, in a way doors are open to you, but too much freedom there. So you don't like it, because too much freedom means too much responsibility on you. And we never like responsibilities. And that's why we again go back. And then you have, the scholastic traditions which tries to solve all the problems for you. The basic decision is that you will say, Khyal is not to be sung in tu vilambita tempo. If this is a rule, you are happy, because then you don't have to take a decision. And mind you, all these philosophies then, like all these religions, they say, we give you a sutra, you interpret it. And the moment somebody says that, we need an interpreter, because otherwise it's very difficult to interpret it. That's why you have institutions. That's why you have codifications, etc. I will go back a bit just to try parallels here. What are the phases of Indian religiosity? I am not referring to any particular religion, mind you, as I am not referring to any particular music. I am only saying music in India. I am not saying Indian music even. I am saying music in India and religion in India. First phase is Yatu, magic phase. Second phase is sacrifice phase. The third phase is Murti, idols, icon. And finally you have devotion, Bhakti. Now Bhakti will have two branches, as you know, Saguna, Nirguna, etc. The basic point that I would like to make is that each of these religious tempers cannot have the same music. Each must have its own music. There is a kind of religious belief which believes in the magical formula of religion. What would be that stage? Broadly speaking, it means that you will believe in natural forces. You will believe that the natural forces are against you. You will believe that unless you surrender to that natural force or propitiate it, it will no good to you. These are your beliefs. Then what kind of music you would have? This is the question that I am posing. And that means the kind of religiosity you have in mind must be responded to by a particular kind of music. So when religions change, music will have to change. If music doesn't change, the religion would suffer. This is the thesis that I have mentioned earlier too. Now what kind of music you would have? I have some examples here, but I couldn't gather all of them, which I really would like to. But taking into consideration, these are the four phases, and taking into consideration, we are aware of, say, magic phase. Now magic phase, as I said, will have what kind of music? It will have repetitious sounds. It may not have sweet timbres. It will rely on strokes and strikes. It will also rely on lot of movement. It will rely on, as I said, lot of rituality, which is full of symbolism. All this would go with the Yatu phase, with the magic phase. And this music, if you listen to that music, it may not sound music to you. That's the point that one has to remember, that music need not be and cannot be always musical. Just as a melody cannot be melodious all the time. It cannot be. It should not be. Your definitions which seem to nurture you on only sweet music are inadequate. They do injustice to music. The easy example which convinces many art musicians is that in Begum Akhtar's voice, are you going to say that every note that she sings is full of tune, full of tunefulness? No. There is a register break which is out of tune naturally, and still it is emotionally very moving. That means music can be moving without being tuneful. All sounds need not be musical in that sense of the term. We have to realize that. Just as T.S. Eliot somewhere says that in a poem every word cannot be poetic. Obvious, if you have all the words poetic, it will be what? It will be mishmash of words, not poetry at all. So these points taken into consideration tell us that with particular kind of religious temper you must have a different kind of music which may not sound good. You come to the next stage, sacrificial music. Now what is sacrificial music? I am saying that with sacrificial religions you will have a particular kind of music. What would be that? There naturally your movements are more ritualistic, more preordinated, more directed, more deliberate. And as you know, sacrifice means there are so many factors to be coordinated. And that means it results in more purposeful arrangement of sound. Even if you insist only on following one kind of development in India, you will find that okay, obviously Samaveda was a sacrificial music, and before that there was different kind of music. As you know, Samaveda means minus 75 ruchas of all Rigveda. And where are those 75? From where they come? Then people have said that these were the pre-existing melodies which were so powerful that they entered into Samaveda even though they were not in Rigveda. So this is what I am saying, that musicality was there and it took over the religious temper, and the religion wanted to have music, it did need the music and it accepted the music. Then of course you have various phases where you have gathas, archika. Archika music meant only one note. Gatha means two. More than that sama. And then of course 5 and 7, etc., etc. But these are later histories. We don't go into that. The point which we are making is that with sacrificial kind of religiosity, we will have a music which will be more coordinated, highly deliberate, constructed, etc. And of course, various kinds of musical forces coming in, more accompaniment, more instruments, instruments which are not utensils or objects, but real instruments. And this is interesting to note. And finally, of course, we know very much the devotional music which we talk of. Now, devotional music does not mean that when you sing it, you are full of devotion. You may not. You might be thinking of Devegowda's Fall and you will be singing Tukarama's Abhanga. Even then it is devotional music because it has a particular structure. And we are talking of musical structures here, not talking of your mind in it. I know that your mind is important, but it doesn't exist all the time. So reality is that very rarely that the content of music and your intention coincide. Most of the times you are only trying to do that. So what matters is the musical structure which you are putting before us. And obviously it means that in devotional music, very interesting to say that right from 8th century onwards, we had saint poets who were also composers, who composed thousands of songs, propagated them through oral tradition, no copyrights involved, no great music involved. The music was simple. The talas were ardha talas. Nobody sang, for example, a bhajan in Ada Chautal. They sang in 4s and 6s and 8s, that's all. And this is in all religions, mind you. I am talking of devotional music, right? Now, it so happened naturally that devotional music meant a larger catch in terms of the human beings involved. Larger portions of the society were involved in that. So there were people who said, we are not satisfied with this kind of music. So in devotional music in India, in every region, you have two streams. One stream is nearer to art music, the other one is nearer to folk music. So in devotional music all over India, you will have these two. And finally, supposing that you accept all this, still the basic question remains that why do you need music to be religious? Do you mean to say that religion doesn't fulfill what you want to? Then why do you need music? And for musicians, if you are aware of your own tradition, if you have enough training, if you have that motivation, why do you need religion? And then I feel that they share certain ambitions, both of them. And the ambition is very simple, that in drama, as they say, Eko Ham, I am one, Bahusyam, I will be many, I want to be many. Why a playwright is born, why an actor is born, he feels that no, I don't want to be confined to myself, I want to be many. That's his drive. Similarly, in art, in music, what you need to do, I want to go out of myself. I want to move away from what we are doing. We are talking prose. I don't want to talk prose. You are speaking in 3 pitches. No, I don't want to belong to you. I want to explore more and more pitches. And this I am giving you, as I said, in nutshell, some kind of skeletal framework. But this is what's happening. And it can be substantiated by any number of examples. So why music? Firstly, now a bit more philosophical here. Both religion and music help you to reach the core of human beings. They somehow go to the core of that person. That's why we like it. Religion helps you to do that. It can, if you are a religious person in true sense of the term, it will help you to do that. Similarly, music helps you to do that. By music, you are able to reach the core of a person. In simple language, you must have seen that all over India, you may not know the language of the region. You start singing, and the man sits there. He listens to you. He nods, and you smile. Somewhere you have reached him. How have you managed to reach him? He doesn't know your language. He doesn't know your music. He might not have heard you. He might not like your face. But still, you will reach him. Somewhere music reaches the core of human beings. And finally, I would make a distinction here that both religion and music help you in forgetting the ego and becoming the I. Forgetting the ego and becoming an I with big capital I. You are able to be yourself, not somebody. You know, your father says that you should be this, and that is your ego. Your society says you must behave in this way, so that is your ego. Your teacher tells you that this is how you should behave, this is your ego. You read a good book and you say, oh, that must be a role model. These are all your egos, but you are not there. Your part might be there. So you want to be yourself. And both religion and music help you to do that. And there are, of course, devices how these things are achieved. For example, how religion helps you in doing that? Forgetting, for example, the ego and becoming an I. First, by merging you in a collective. It says, become a part of a whole collective. That's why bhajans are popular. You are able to lose yourself. You are able to forget yourself. That's why bhajans are also simple. Because if only Lata Mangeshkar is allowed to sing, then what will happen? You won't be able to join in. And that's why it seems that both music and religion allow you to become yourself, forgetting your ego part, which is a result of so many outside forces acting on you. And there are, of course, various ways in this it is achieved. I remember once, suddenly I thought that how many perfumes or how many fragrances are popular in Indian worships. And then I went to analyze some of them. And the common factor was all the perfumes, all the fragrances which are used in Indian worships are masking odors. That is, they are able to mask everything else out. And that's very important. Sandalwood is a very powerful thing. It is able to drive away everything else, and that's important. Modern perfumes are very individual, but traditional perfumes are not individual. You use khas in summer. Khas is very strong. It drives out all other odors. So this masking possibility means that in a way it negates the boundaries, it blurs the boundaries and binds you down in a collective. This happens in all rituals, and fragrances are a part of the ritual. Similarly about sounds, the kind of sounds that you have. Nobody will accuse a Varkari that, oh, you are always in tune. He doesn't want to be in tune all the time. Otherwise 1,000 people won't be able to sing. So if anybody says that all Indian music is devotional, so many questions. All devotional music is very sweet, many more questions. This is, in nutshell, I have pointed out to you certain provoking questions in this relationship, which I believe is a very strong one and which is a very necessary one and which is also a very natural one. Now I will play back some of the examples which I have. And with the examples I would like you to now take part in the discussion, and simply you may say that what kind of relationship this particular music suggests to you between religion and music. And you don't have to agree with me, and I will return the compliment. I may not have to agree with you, but let us discuss it in the true sense of the term, right? Yes. Of course, I mean, if there are any questions at this stage, most welcome. He says, what about when you say music itself is a religion? Now, if anybody says that, that must be like a preamble of a constitution. That is liberty, equality, fraternity. You believe in that. So you believe in this statement. But have you come across people for whom music is religion? I don't. You may say music is one of the religions that they have. That's true. In that sense, you know, when you say music is religion, you are really speaking using a metaphor. You are not making a statement of fact. You are saying music is as powerful or as good as religion for him. That's what you are saying. So this is okay. I mean, there are cricketers who say that cricket is my life, but that is not to be taken literally. Yeah, I mean, that means that, well, for them there is a high priority to cricket in their life. And this is acceptable, of course. Not too many and not at all levels, because somehow music has a deeper connection with religion because music is non-representational. All other arts cannot be non-representation to a similar extent. Now that's why you have abstract painting which comes nearer to music, but no representational painting can do that. So perhaps this is one major advantage of music, and also disadvantage, because music doesn't have a meaning then. So music fails to be appreciated very easily. I mean, if you see a good statue of a horse, you understand the horse, you understand the statue, and you feel happy. But if there is an impressionistic painting, it's very difficult to understand that. At the same time, it's a very important expression. This happens in music. That's why literary theorists like Walter Pater have always said that all arts aspire to the state of music. That's the statement that they have made. But when they said that, they meant that music is non-representational, and that's why music is great. So that means all the modern poetry, as Eliot used to say, that we use meaning in the poetry as we use carrot for a donkey. That is, you show him that, oh, this is the carrot, but actually I am giving you a poem, not carrot. So I am giving you meaning. You think that I am giving you meaning. I am not giving you meaning, I am giving you poetry, which is much more than meaning. Fortunately in India, it has so happened that whatever the political diktats and whatever the political philosophy, in the end, music has won the battle because the people wanted it. In the sense, as you know, Amir Khusro was moved by arts. He was moved by poetry, he was moved by music. And naturally his music making was done under great restraints, as you know. The political as well as religious condition at that time said that this kind of music you can't have. You should not sing about this, you should not sing about that. And here was Amir Khusro singing full-throatedly in that. So he was making a statement against the political system, against the religious belief, because he felt that I am moved by this. So in music, somehow, it seems that these kind of subterfuges or seditious ideas are not understood by the rulers very early, so that music continues. By the time the rulers become aware that this music is making a statement which is a protest statement, they try to clamp a ban on it, music has already propagated. This has happened even in stage music in Maharashtra or stage music in Karnataka or in Bengal. All these music plays used to have songs. As you know, Paravashata Pashadeve Jancha Gala Gala, or whatever it is. Now Kichak Vad, which became a very prominent metaphor on English rule, was banned immediately. But Sanyasta Khadga continued. Later on, government realized that Dinana's singing of that song was a seditious kind of statement, so they banned it. So the point that I am making is, yes, political statements, political philosophies, economic forces, all of them may conspire, but somehow performing arts find out a way out. And they survive if the people want it that way. But if the people feel that no, we don't want it, then it will go. No, in case of music, we always overlook one factor, that it's not enough to say that this particular race which came to India was alien. What kind of music they had? That's a question that you have to ask. What happened when Britishers came here? And this is the first time that we are facing a polyphonic system, which we don't accept. And we might accept in later years. That's our decision. But I definitely feel that, somewhere we are making a mistake when we say that Islam came in the 13th century, things changed. I would ask you a question, what happened in 5th century when the Kushans came? What happened when the Shakas came? Do you have any evidence on that? Have you thought of that? Otherwise, you can't make a statement that whenever people come from outside to India, things change. No, things change if we want them to change. The decision is made by the people who behave according to their inner lives. And that's why I remember his name was Professor Sarmadi, right? He was from Aligarh University. He translated some very basic text from Persian to English. He once came to my department when I was in the university and he said, और कुछ पूछना नहीं है मुझे, एक बात का जवाब दीजिए. You know, it's a very rhetorical kind of style. So I said, okay, चलिए, सही है, क्या है पूछना चाहते हैं? Do you believe in the term dark age? I said no. Do you believe in the term medieval age? I said no. Then he was a bit perplexed. Then I said, what do you mean by that? I said, dark ages I can understand a bit. British and the foreigners always said that this particular period, which they refer to as Middle Ages, was a dark period. We don't have to say that because during the same period in India, we had so many glorious philosophies, glorious religions coming up. So why should I call it a dark age? So I am with you there. And he said, what about Middle Ages? I said, Middle Ages according to whom? If we have a tradition going back to, say, 2000 BC or whatever it is, then according to their chronology, what becomes a Middle Age is not a Middle Age for us. So I don't accept that terminology. Then what is the terminology? He said, आगे चले हम बात करें. What is the terminology? I said, I want to have periodization which is done according to the cultural facts. So for me, 200 BC or 200 AD is an important date. Why? Because Bharatanatyam Shastra came into being. 200 AD important for me, yes, because Kama Sutra was written. Artha Shastra was written. 700 BC important because Panini came. So I said, this is important for me. So you must have cultural chronology to discuss cultural facts. Now what's happening that you have a political chronology and you are trying to fit in cultural facts in that chronology and things get absolutely topsy-turvy. We are not able to understand things. Once I think I made that statement and I am still making it but open to correction that I tried to examine Ajanta murals and I found out that all the musicians have a different physiognomy than the kings. Now either you have to say that kings were idealized, that's why they look different, or you have to accept that all the musicians were from outside. Because performers are always the most mobile. They don't have a stake in your land, they don't have a property, they are in search of patronage. यहाँ नहीं मिला तो वहाँ गए, वहाँ नहीं मिला तो वहाँ गए. So all these were foreigners. If I say that, what would happen? And I do remember Shama Shastri writing on, he saying that all the performing arts are result of Dravidians. Aryas never knew any art. That's his statement. And one has to understand that these are the cultural facts that people should refer to while talking of culture. But we are very much fond of chronology. I always say that in India, if you want to impress people, there are some orgies which help you. One is of course chronology, another is etymology, third is genealogy, and now people see eulogy. So these logies are a favorite, but they are all slippery. I don't feel comfortable at all when somebody says, in the very first chapter he has said Adinatha, and that's why this belongs to the Jayana. I get very uncomfortable. Adinatha can mean anything, just as Aditala. The moment you say Aditala, that must be Tintala. That must be Lord Shankara. So final approval. Now no thinking possible, no thinking allowed. That shouldn't happen. Anyway, we were digressing a bit. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that the success of a religious belief or a religion depends largely on the kind of music that it accepts or propagates. And you gave the example of Brahmo Samaj. I was a little skeptical about this point because the time when Brahmo Samaj came into play in the Indian situation, there were several other historical factors which were at work, and very many historians feel that Rajaram Mohan Roy was working way ahead of his time, and as a result of which he had to compromise a lot. Then you have the revivalist trend later on. So don't you think that other political, economic factors, social factors have a large role to play in the success of religion, not as much as music?
Yeah, one way of looking at this problem is that when we say that Brahmo Samaj, I mean taking that example, Brahmo Samaj faltered because it couldn't have its own music. I will take you back to the historical development there. All the time when people went on saying that you might have said that Brahmo Samaj has different ideals, in 10 years time people said all of that you are saying is in Upanishad. So your thought content is not different at all. Right? On the other hand, when Brahmo Samaj wanted to have music for the Upasana, they tried to have, there are pictorial evidence to give you that, they wanted to have harmonium, piano, Dilruba, and along with that they wanted to have Drupad. This combination did not click. Then I remember some Parameshwara, some wording there, Yadu Bhatt composed that and he sang for it. Nidhu Babu also did it. Nidhu Babu, who was otherwise famous for his tappas and a different kind of tappa altogether, he did some music for that family. It couldn't catch hold because musically you are not saying anything different. And the moment you wanted to say something different musically, you try to fall back on harmony and polyphony which were foreign to our idiom. So it never could have any music of its own. And I am saying that why music is needed by religion, because religion somewhere wants to have a foothold in a non-representational realm. And their music gives you the founding. And that's why if you don't have a music, then you are likely to falter. And you will try to find out all those sects and new deities which came up. If they followed the same music which is current, then they are safe. If they try to coin new music, unless the music is powerful, they die out. See the cults all over India. I mean, latest example is Santoshi Mata. It's a very powerful cult in Gujarat. What music they have? Music which they follow is the usual bhajan, parampara, whatever it is. Only Santoshi, instead of somebody else, he will say Santoshi, that's all. Another example, Mahanubhav sect in Maharashtra and Punjab. Mahanubhav sect was very powerful. What kind of music they had? No trace left. Vaishnavas, strong. You had Samartha Sampradaya. What music you have? You don't have a music. Where is the sect? Which is more powerful? The Vaishnavas. Because they were able to carve out a music of their own. So I am not saying that there is one-to-one relationship between one factor and two. It can never be. But what we are saying that there is a range of effects here and a range of effects there. And this range is controlled by this. So obviously there is a close relationship. And the examples can be of course, shown. But the point here worth remembering is only this, that if you want to have religion which has a staying power, then it must have some alambana, where it can have the non-representational content firmly secured, and music can give you that, and nothing else. Because music by itself has that power.
You also spoke about the drive in religion and music in India. Would you say the need for both is the same? The experience may be the same.
Need for both is to, as I say, it boils down to that I want to be a part of the society, still I want to be myself. This paradox. Or, as I said, I want to have an ego, but I want to find myself. I want to be I. What can be done? But I feel that the most important thing here is that unless religion and music both help you in doing this, you won't go to that. Because intellectual content, etc. is not for us. There are very few who are interested in that. Most of them are interested in emotional experience. And very interestingly, I don't know whether I made that point, but I said that it is beyond this feeling or that feeling, etc. Emotional experience is the most ambiguous of the experiences, which you are never able to verbalize. And that's where you want to reach, whether in religion or music. So religious drives use music. Now let me make that point. I said use, abuse and misuse. So now I am saying that musicians use religion to be better musicians. And religious people use music to become better religious people. That is to have to be more efficient in their own special field. Musicians don't want to be saints, they want to be better musicians. But they can use religion because it also helps them to go to that transcendental, meditative, non-representational strata.
Then those who don't use religion, will they be bad musicians?
No, they will be struggling musicians.
Struggling for what?
Struggling for the same kind of achievement. You know, it's like this. Finally, you have to realize that for any efficient action, you need body-mind relationship because you have a body and a mind. I am saying a similar kind of formulation here. That when I say drive, and I am not saying it instinct, so I made that clear. When I say drive, that means you have to have it. This is a kind of polarity situation, that you have two poles here. You can't say, I don't want that. No. Because it's another term, this is co-relationship. That is mutual dependence. You can't think of the one without thinking of the other. It's bound to be there. And then you will interpret it and use it. Fine. That's what musicians do.
Don't you think music is complete in itself to enable the performer or the listener to transcend from the concrete to the abstract without the use of religion?
Theoretically completion, yes, but practically no. For the simple reason, I mean, as religious people have also been saying that if you understand Geeta, why do you need a guru? A simple question as that. People do ask this. That I understand. Intellectually, I do understand. In Marathi, there are two verbs, समजणे and उमजणे. मला समजतं पण उमजत नाही. So you need an outside intervention. And this outside intervention, in case of music as a discipline, is religion. And in case of religion, it is music. That's what I am saying.
What happens then when the musician says that today I have reached the zenith, I have gone beyond the boundaries, and there is no religion over there?
The moment...
Just the music has taken him over there.
Yeah. But the moment he is thinking of transcending the boundaries, the mental state in which he is that kind of state. And if he realizes that, it will be easier for him to transcend the boundary.
That kind of state?
Where I have said the temper, the religious temper has so many factors, musical temper has so many factors, all those as a rituality, institutionalization, emotional experience, beyond verbalization, no particular feeling, no particular emotion, no particular content, no dictionary available. You can't say that this music means this. No, you mean music is music. The moment you say that, you are in that temper. And that temper, to achieve that temper, this is a very easy aid because this is one of your drives.
When you were defining sound, then you mentioned that ether is a property of shabda. When you were explaining shabda, then you mentioned that ether is a property of shabda.
Shabda is anubhuti of the sense of hearing and property of the ether.
Property of ether. Now question arises that
is Akasha Tattva.
If it is Akash, then it's okay, because ether, as science says, that ether doesn't exist, and there is one ether that is chemical substance.
Akash also doesn't exist, it envelops you.
And one more point that you told that Nada Brahma...
we always make a distinction between Akasha and Avakasha. Akasha, it exists. You can't measure it. Avakasha is that part of Akasha which you measure. So you are able to talk of Avakasha, but not of Akasha. And that's why Shabda is the first thing. This is a people from philosophy told me that this is a Sankhya way of looking at things. That going to the first principle. And that's why Shabda is the first principle. The grammarians later on appropriated this term and they say Shabda is a minimal unit of language. It's not so.
As you mentioned that Nada Brahma and Para Brahma, they are different. But say Jivatma and Paramatma, they are the part of the Atma itself. So Nad, if it is Anahat Nad or Ahat Nad, they are Nad itself. So
क्षमा चाहता हूँ, मैंने जैसा कहा था अनाहत नाद के बाद उस तरफ मैं जाता ही नहीं, मैं हाथ से ही नीचे आ रहा हूँ. I tell you frankly that if we don't want to get embroiled in technical terminologies, now this is also technical terminology. I mean, Jivatma, Paramatma is not just words. In fact, I am saying that when you say Nada Brahma, you are not aware that you are using a technical term, which is not from music, because music comes much later. And that's why I said, no, I won't use it. And I will also suggest you also don't use it, because it's a very slippery term. I will play back one or two things. I have many, but just to give you a kind of evidence for the thinking that I am going into. I may not understand the language, I may not understand the musical culture which gives you this kind of music, and still I get a feeling that somewhere there are some parallels here between the sound produced and the content which is produced, not knowing anything about it. And I think this is a kind of example which tells you more about the relationship. I always talk of chanting. I always say that in music, in India, music begins how? First stage, Ichha. I think of music making. That's the first stage. Nobody outside India will say that this is the first stage. They will start with acoustics, that you have to hit on something and then sound is produced. So I said no, Ichha. That's the first. Then murmur. Then chanting. Then recitation. Then song. Then singing. So this is the full spectrum. You have to decide where you are, and that will be a kind of music. For example, recitation, chanting are not the same thing. They are different. And you will see that whether it is ajan, whether it is a shloka, they are chanting. Why? Because they structurally move only a few paces. Because chanting is supposed to reach everybody. Because the chanting is supposed to be accessible to everybody. So you cannot have a 3-scale tana in any chanting. Because chanting is to be meant for everybody. So I think this is where we talk of drives. And the drive decides what kind of use of music you are going to make. So what I am playing now to you are very simple examples which you must have come after. The first one is very familiar, and the latter ones I will play which I am sure you must not have heard. Let's see. Very obvious, but taking a point.
Krishna Jai Jai Ram, Krishna Hari, Jai Jai Ram, Krishna Hari, Jai Jai Ram, Hari Jai Ram.
Devotional, highly codified, structurally meant for the crowd, not for a solo singer. So all the talas used, all the melodies used, all the instruments used will be under this condition, basic condition. And that's why devotional music in India is able to reach so many. And the moment it is transformed into solo music, it becomes a concert music. We are not saying that it doesn't have a place. It has, but it's not that. And the basic drive of this music is not fulfilled by that music. That's what we are saying.
Hari Jai Jai Ram, Krishna Hari, Jai Jai Ram, Krishna Hari.
And I have examples of lesser musicians doing the same thing. and a similar amount of, following that they have, because the basic drive is not of being musical. He is musical, that's good. But you may not be and you need not be musical for this kind of music. What you need to be is, as I said, within that structure, appealing to those many, with those words, there are signals given, things communicated, they are picked up, and the whole thing becomes a collective exercise. That's the basic thrust of that kind of music. And that's why I remember when our own friend Srinivas Khade composed abhangas for Lata, and when Lata sang those abhanga, including the gajars, etc., our Warkari friends said that, what have you done? Now people have started singing those abhangas instead of the traditional ones, and they are not able to sing like Lata. So they have lost that base which they had. Now this kind of thinking is a different kind of thinking, and we should at least ensure that all kind of music is made. We don't say that Lata should not sing sweetly, we should not say that Lata should not have those abhangas, though she should have. But they should not replace the other ones, because other ones have a different function. That's all that we are saying. I will play another music now, it's again. This is also a very peculiar feature. Going into double.
Hare Jai Ram Krishna, Hare Jai Ram Krishna, Hare Jai Ram Krishna.
Nowhere in India you will come across a form of this music which is not in 8, not in 4, nowhere in India. Because it is meant for the crowd, and what is easy, what kind of mode is easy for the crowd, it will be used. When you see the talas which are popular in various regions, no exceptions found. It is a beautiful piece, let's see. If you understand the language, I don't, and still I felt very moved when I listened to it. Nobody would be able to say this is an amorous song or a love song. Beautiful religious music. And there are thousands of such pieces. I mean, one has to, of course, analyze further, but it's very obvious how the vocal resources are used, how the intonation, what kind of voice, what kind of echo used. Now, this echo is also something, which transcends you. It takes you out of the regular sound. So it has a purpose there. Why the temples are so resonant? Why the mass have to be resonant? Why the church is resonant? They have to be, because they want to take you out of yourself. This one, well, guess and then I will tell you. Not because I know, but I have the recording, so I know. Huh? This is from Turkestan. Turkestan, yes. Turkestan. One or two pieces more, and then again a different kind of sentiment, because the religion has a different kind of statement to make. So the music has to be accordingly. That's the thing we have to remember. This was, as he thought, the Irish tradition, and they have a tradition of intonation as well. This, of course, is slightly organized. That is, they have composed music, but they have not changed the tunes, they have arranged. And the recording is done, of course, with special care for the resonance, for that drone which is at the background, all the time giving you a feeling of, repose. And these are the kinds of things which you come across when you start thinking of religion and music, or music and religion. And I feel that both of them have played a great role in our lives, and they are likely to play even more. And when you have these many media coming across, so much music available to you, even there is a greater possibility that people in Maharashtra would know more about people in Gujarat. Even that is possible now. Because otherwise our tradition has been never to bother about what happens in the next region. Unless you want to conquer that region, you never think of it. But otherwise now it's possible. You will come to know more and more of what really India is. And India is a cultural federation. Politically it might be a nation, but we are a cultural federation. And the moment you understand that, all these diversity and differences become very important. If you understand them, you will be saved the embarrassment of making pan-Indian statements and then, gulping them down the next moment. Well, that's all. Thank you. If you have questions, yes.
स्वयं अपनी ओर से और हमारे फाउंडेशन की ओर से और संगीत और नर्तन शिक्षा पीठ की ओर से डॉक्टर अशोक रानड़े जी को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देता हूं, जो उन्होंने यहाँ आकर हम लोग सबको सोचने के लिए कुछ दिया है। धन्यवाद।